Hey guys, Eric Cooper's personal trainer here at Functional Aesthetics EC. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a very common problem that I see with a lot of my clients, and that is having problems with either pain in your butt or in your hips or hip flexors from prolonged sitting. So essentially what it's like is, since your body is meant to be moving most of the time, if you make your body sit during most of your waking hours, it's like you're building all this energy in those muscles, but it's got no place to go. So it creates a lot of tension and aggravation in those muscles. Additionally, they are generally the muscles that are supposed to be, your muscles are supposed to stretch, contract. But when you're in these sitting positions for prolonged periods of time, it's usually that one muscle is continually stretched and then the other opposing muscle is continually in a shortened position. So in today's video, I want to show you some simple techniques that you can do to relieve your butt pain without any expensive treatment, anything like that. And so take a look, watch the video, and we'll see you on the flip side. Okay, so when it comes to relieving pain, chronic aches and pains, or correcting muscular imbalances, there's a three-phase approach to how you do this. Now, the first phase is creating a short-term fix, and if you go to get a massage or something like that, because you have some pain in your neck or whatever, so it relieves that tension, relieves the tension, and then you get that temporary relief from the pain. However, if your muscles are out of balance and you continue doing the activity that contributed to the pain initially, you're going to continue having that problem in the future. So for that reason, the first thing we want to do is we're going to do some massage. So we're going to do some foam rolling, trigger point massage type stuff. And then the next phase is stretching. So you want to be stretching the muscles that have been chronically shortened. And then the final phase is to be strengthening the muscles that are chronically lengthened. And you also, one thing that may not be as readily apparent is the muscles that are chronically lengthened may also need to have some massage done to them as well. And the reason for this is that, if you've ever heard of something called glute amnesia, when you're sitting a lot, your butt muscles, sometimes the nerves and stuff like that going to them get compressed, and then you don't, you kind of lose that connection between the brain and the muscle a little bit on how to properly fire those muscles. So you go to the gym, you're trying to do hip bridges and different glute exercises to help exercise those muscles and grow them or whatever, and you're not getting optimal results because the muscles aren't firing correctly. So the first thing we want to do is, quotes, switch them on, and then they'll make it more effective. So the next couple of exercises, I'm going to show you first, the first phase, which will be the massage, and a couple exercises you can do to help balance both sides of the joint at your hip to relieve that butt pain or your hip pain that you're having. And then we're going to go into some stretching exercises. And then finally, I'll show you and suggest a few strengthening exercises that you can do so that you can help correct this problem long term and prevent it from having the pain come back in the future. All right, guys, see you in the next exercise. Alright guys, so the first exercise we're going to do is foam rolling for your glutes and your piriformis muscle. You've probably seen this exercise before, so I'll just recap it really quickly here. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to sit on it like this, and you can just roll back and forth like this, but what we want to do is put those muscles on a slight stretch as well to help you get deeper into the muscles to create a even better massage. So how we do that is you're going to put your ankle across your opposite knee, and you're going to roll, and then angle this knee down towards the floor, tilt your body. That'll hit more of the piriformis, and then as you come more vertical, that'll hit more of the gluteus maximus. So wherever you're tending to have that pain, if you have that pain kind of the hollow of your butt, on the side of your butt cheek, then that's probably more piriformis pain, or some of your other external rotators in your hip, and you want to focus on that. Another thing you can do to get even deeper is to grab a tennis ball, and you can take that tennis ball and put it right up the side there, and then using your body, like your arm, you can adjust how much weight you're putting on it. Now, what you want to do, rather than kind of rolling like I was doing, is you want to put it in the position where you feel that tension, that pain, and just kind of camp out in that area for about 20 to 30 seconds. Move it around because it might creep around and go to different areas. So that's a way we can get even deeper into the smaller, harder to get areas where the bigger, broader foam roller does not get into them. All right, so the next thing we want to be looking at is the hip flexors. So as I talked before, a lot of times you get this pain and stuff from the opposing muscle groups. And if you are having the chronic, like say if you're having butt pain, you think, okay, well, I want to massage out my butt and stuff like that. But you're also going to want to massage the hip flexors because that can be contributing to the ability of your glutes to fire if you can't get full hip extension because your hip flexors are too tight. Additionally, you probably get cramped hip flexors from sitting too long as well, or they become very weak. So the initial stages before you start strengthening your hip flexors, because oftentimes you can get pain in the muscles, and you think, okay, I need to stretch it. But a lot of times, yes, you do need to stretch, but you also need to be strengthening the exercises and building what we call active flexibility or mobility in those muscles so that the pain does not keep on coming back. So the first stage with that would be foam rolling for the hip flexors. Pretty self-explanatory. However, you're going to want to put that foam roller at a slight angle so that it fits in the crease there in the groin. And then lay on it here like this. And we're going to go real slow, kind of find those areas where it's a little bit of tension. And one thing when you're doing these exercises, make sure that you always take a deep breath before you put any of the pressure on the area, and then exhale into the pressure, back and forth like that. And then you can also, because the quads also kind of tie in there too, and sometimes people think they have tight hip flexors, but actually, if you're doing a lot of squats or biking, things like that, after you come home from your desk job, your quads will tend to get tight as well, so you want to make sure that you have good flexibility in your quads as well. So you can even after you've done the hip flexors, move up, start doing your quads. If you want to increase that massage, bend the knee, and roll out to the outside as well. All right, so one last area that I want to touch on before we get moving on here is foam rolling for the IT band. So the IT band is that fibrous tendon, basically runs all the way up from just below the hip here and then inserts just below the knee. If you extend your knee here, you can usually feel that little tendon here in the side. That's where your IT band goes down there. So it's very common for people, if their glutes are weak, their hip will rotate inwardly too far when their foot hits the ground, causing their foot to pronate, and then that causes the IT band to get stretched excessively, which causes irritation. So a lot of times when people are having that butt pain, hip pain, things like that, it's also tied in here because everything, as I've explained in some other videos that I made, is all connected. It all affects one another. So that's why you should work on the body as a whole. But I digress. So you want to do a little bit of foam rolling for the IT band. And so you can have different hardnesses of foam rollers. This one's pretty moderate, and I would suggest that you start out with one that is pretty, that isn't too hard to begin with. Another thing you can do is you can put your foot up over the top and use your foot to propel you, and then that also allows you to dictate how much pressure you are putting on your IT band, because if it is irritated and you haven't done this before, it might be very painful. So you want to start out nice and slow. As you start to gain some relief and it becomes loosened up a little bit more, then you can increase, you can stack your feet one on top of the other like this when you do it. And then you can also move to a harder foam roller. All right, I think you get the idea. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna move into the stretching phase of our program. So as I talked about, we want to be stretching the chronically short muscles. So if you're sitting a lot, those muscles are gonna be quadriceps, hip flexors, but we also wanna stretch those, the glutes as well, for the reason that I described previously, talking about switching them on. So massage, stretch, then strengthen them. So you've probably seen a hip flexor stretch before. Now, just to reiterate this, I like to start where I'm kind of in a standing position first, rise up on the ball of my foot, and then sink down, my knee down towards the floor. Feel like I get a better stretch that way, and you want to be coming down vertically, right? Now, once you are vertically positioned like that, the idea is to squeeze, contract your butt from behind, and use that to push yourself forward. So rather than leaning forward like this, because that takes the tension off, you want to be keeping relatively vertical. Don't arch your back too much. You want to contract the butt, squeeze, and you might only get an inch or two of motion out of that. And then just hold it there for a second, take a breath, come back like that. You can even go up and down a couple times. A great exercise after you've loosened up a little bit is actually to do split squats. Is you're not only stretching the hip flexor on this side and eccentrically strengthening the quadriceps, but as you're pushing through, you push through the middle of your foot. You also feel the glutes on the opposite side activating in addition to the quadriceps. So if you're leaning too far forward, you're only going to feel the quads, but the initial part of the movement, if you push straight up out of it, you'll feel the glutes as well, which will also help to strengthen them. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to do some active, so you've seen quadriceps stretch before, so I'm not going to demonstrate that one, but what you can do for also stretching and at the same time strengthening the quads, because a lot of times, like I mentioned earlier in this video, just because a muscle is tight does not mean that it's overly strong. It can also be weak and tight. So to create or build mobility or that active flexibility, we want to also be strengthening at the same time that we're stretching, and how you do that is with this exercise right here. So, roll your feet up underneath you, and then you're going to take a deep breath and roll your hips under, come back, and go back as far as you're comfortable. Pause for a second at the bottom, come back up, do a couple of those, and that will help to strengthen that as well. Sometimes what I like to do is start it off with this, do a couple reps of those, and then come back up and do the split squat, because then you're more stretching it even further, and you're also strengthening the opposite side of the joint as well. All right, so now we're going to actually be stretching the actual muscles where you might be having that pain. So if you have the butt pain, we want to be stretching out your glutes, and there's numerous ways that you can be stretching your glutes, but for the sake of simplicity, because this video is getting rather lengthy, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. So we're going to go with a couple basic exercises. The first one, you're sitting like this, you take one foot, you cross it up over the top of the other. You're going to grab your ankle, you're going to bring it up above your knee like this. And then you're going to grab the outside of your knee, taking a deep breath. And just relax into it. So on every inhalation, you're going to be holding the position that you've currently gained. Every exhalation, you're going to try to stretch a little bit deeper into the stretch. And then you'll repeat it on the other side. Okay, so the other exercise you can do after that is you can be doing a piriformis stretch. So again, hitting more of those external rotators. And you've probably seen this one before as well. And you can stretch it like this. I like to sometimes actually sit up straight like this. It actually kind of stretches out your quadratus lumborum as well on the posterior side, right just above your pelvis. In addition to also stretching the piriformis. If you want an even better piriformis stretch, you can do this standing up. You can hold onto a wall, balance yourself, taking that deep breath, and squat down and stretch like that. Yeah, another added benefit is it also stretches your biceps femoris. So in your hamstrings, you have 3 different hamstring muscles, and the most lateral one, which helps in the external rotation a little bit, is your biceps femoris, and that also helps to stretch that as well. So now after we've done this, the next thing we would want to do is a pigeon pose. So this is kind of something from yoga. I am not a yoga expert, so I may be doing this slightly different than it should be done. But basically what you do is you bring your foot out to approximately a 90. If you're not, the more flexible you get, the more you can bring that out to a 90 degree in the knees. The less flexible, you can bring it in a little bit further. So you come out like this, and then as you exhale, drop that knee down towards the floor. Continue breathing in and out deeply for maybe 5 breaths or 20 to 30 seconds. You can also do repeats of this. Hold it for about 10 seconds. Switch to the other side, come back, and do 2 or 3 sets of that. So then after this, then I like to bring it back down like this. Stretch out the anterior tibialis muscle in the front of my shins, because that tends to get cramped a little after I do that. That's just me. All right, so now after we've done that, now we can do a little hip mobility drills, and you get this 90-90 stretch. So reason 90-90 is you have 90 degrees at the knees, 90 degrees at the hips, and 90 degrees at the other knee. So you're taking a deep breath. And if this is early in the morning when you're doing this, or if you haven't been very active all day, sometimes what I like to do is, instead of holding myself down in the stretch position the entire time, is every time I breathe in, I come up slightly, exhale, and that allows me to fill my lungs more completely. And as I get more stretched out and more warmed up, then I can just hold that bottom position as I breathe in and out. Then obviously you're going to want to go switch over to the other side. Another thing that you can do for the purposes of that active flexibility or mobility, to strengthen your hip flexors at the same time that you're also stretching out the glutes, glute medius and things like that on the other sides, is to do this where you try to actively move yourself into the stretch. So using the muscles that are being stretched to move you into that position. So instead of using your hands so much, you try to keep your hands up in front of you and move yourself back and forth like that. Because then you're actually strengthening your hip flexors at the same time that you're performing the stretch. So you can do a combination of those two things. So the last area I want to focus on with the stretching is the low back. So the lower back actually ties into your glute muscles at the top. So sometimes that tightness in your lower back, as I talked about, everything being tied together, tightness in dysfunction in your glutes can contribute to tightness in your back. So doing a little bit of stretching for your back as well. And this will actually also help if you have the tech neck sort of thing where you're kind of hunched forward like this, because it also helps to stretch out your cervical flexors at the same time that you're also stretching out your upper back between the shoulder blades and things like that. So I call it the heels over head stretch, because that's exactly what it is. You're taking a deep breath, and then as you're exhaling, you come back like this. And then continue breathing deeply from this position, and then try to keep your hands flat on the floor. Inhale, roll down 1 second at a time to get down to the bottom. And then from there, you go into that splits position, do some 90-90s, do it again, maybe 3 to 5 times should be sufficient. Or if you're feeling a lot of benefits and it's not loosening up as quickly as you'd like, you can continue doing it until you feel that you've gotten a sufficient stretch. All right, enough with the stretching exercises. I might throw in a couple towards the end of the video for thoracic mobility and stuff, but now we're going to go on to a couple recommendations that for strengthening those weaker muscles, so that you hopefully are preventing this issue from coming back. All right, so the next thing we want to be doing, as I talked about in the previous clip, is we want to be doing some strengthening. So prior to doing the strengthening, we want to start at the most base level with activation. So an easy way that you can activate, turn your glutes on, and simultaneously also stretch your hip flexors is by doing something called a duck stand. So what you do is you stand with your feet splayed out in that abducted position here, and then you see my hips here, they're kind of rotated forward, right? So taking a deep breath, you're gonna drive your heels down into the floor, you're gonna lock your knees out, and then you're gonna rotate your hips under. And so sometimes it can be helpful to squeeze the glutes, rotate under, and then lock your knees out to increase that stretch. You'll actually, a lot of times when you do that, feel those hip flexors stretching as you're doing this. And then you'll hold this for about 30 seconds for 3 sets. Hold it for 30 seconds, stretch. So this is a good one actually to do where you contract it, do a glute stretch, contract, do a glute stretch on both sides, contract, back and forth like that. So after you've done this, I would recommend doing this every day for a week, 3 sets of 30 seconds. And then after that, then you can move on to a little bit more aggressive glute strengthening exercise. So you've probably seen the hip bridge exercise. You can do those where you're laying down on the ground like this, and you want to, when you're doing the hip bridge, you want to make sure you're rotating your hips, your pelvis posteriorly before, so that you flatten your lower back on the mat before you lift your hips up. That'll increase the engagement of your glutes. So, as with most exercises, it's important not only that you do them, but also how you do them for maximum effect. So, coming up off the floor, try to keep that posterior rotation going on there. It also increases the stretch in your hip flexors. And you can hold that for 30 seconds, or you can hold it for 10 seconds, come down, go back up, 10 seconds, back and forth like that. Sometimes I feel like you get better results, especially initially, by allowing the muscle to relax, contract. Sometimes if I hold it too long, it seems like the muscle gets, especially if you're getting fatigued with something, it'll just switch off and then you stop getting the benefits that you're looking for. So once that becomes easy, or if it's already easy for you to do, then you can do it. This also helps with the upper body posture because you're also stretching out your biceps muscles and then the shoulder muscles up here as well. Also good for increasing wrist strength. Take that deep breath. Push yourself off the ground. Posteriorly rotate the hips. Squeeze the glutes. Push your hips up towards the ceiling. And again, hold that for 30 seconds to a minute. Now, if you've done any time hanging around the gym, you've seen people doing the hip thrusters with the barbell and stuff, and those are good exercises as well. You can do those, but I would recommend that you do these first so that you're making sure you're doing the exercise properly and you're feeling it where you're supposed to be feeling it, and then start adding weight. If you add weight and you can no longer feel the muscles that you're trying to activate with that increased weight, decrease the weight a little bit until you can feel it, and then progressively start adding more weight over time. Okay, so this next exercise here makes me feel like, so when I was in grade school, my mom would watch these Jane Fonda videos, and so it's kind of reminiscent of the 80s workout videos. But anyway, you're gonna do a side lying leg lift. So this exercise here is to strengthen the glute medius as well as your piriformis. If you externally rotate or turn your toe up, you're going to get a little bit more of that piriformis action because the piriformis is one of those external rotators in conjunction with the glute medius of to externally rotate your hip. So, coming up, and again, with any exercise, you want to be exhaling as you come up, inhale on the way down, squeeze for a second at the top, let it down nice and slow, squeeze for a second on the top. Now, once you can do 20 of these with relative ease, then you can start adding a resistance band, or you can add the resistance band around just above your knees and do external rotations like this. Or, if you don't have a resistance band, you can use your own body weight and lift your hips off the ground like so. And that'll also strengthen it. Or, I'm not going to do it because I'm barefoot. It's going to hurt with this plate here. But you can stand up and put your foot next to a weight, a trash can or something like that. And you can push, while you stay stable here, push your foot out sideways. And that'll help strengthen the glute medius as well. So some other low budget, low cost ways that you can strengthen those muscles. All right, we'll get on to our last two exercises. So another good way to strengthen your glutes is to do kettlebell swings. And I don't have a kettlebell here with me, so I'm just using a plate, which can also work. You can also use a backpack full of books or cans. You can use a rope that you string through, some cinder blocks or something like that if you want. If you have weight plates, you can actually use a heavy dumbbell too. If you have some weight plates, but you can just go buy some black steel pipe, buy a floor flange, buy about a foot long pipe nipple, and then two like 3-inch pipe nipples or something like that, or 6-inch pipe nipples, and then a T, and you can use that to stack all the weights on and you make your own homemade kettlebell. So the kettlebell swing, you want to make sure that you're not getting too much action in the arms. It's not a dumbbell swing, that's also an exercise, but that's not what we're trying to do here. We want it to be mostly the glutes and focus on hip extension, right? So you're going to breathe in deeply. As you swing back as far as you can, you should feel a stretch in the hamstrings at the bottom. Keep a slight bend in those knees at the bottom as well. You come down, and once you've reached that peak stretch at the back, then you're going to extend the hips. Let that weight swing forward and extend the hips. And if you notice, when you extend the hips forcefully like that, if you're noticing that the weight's just swinging up too high, it's getting that little bit of hang time, then just drop it back, increase the weight so that that's about as high as you can swing that weight. You can even bend your elbows a little bit too, if that helps you focus on that a little bit more. All right, the last exercise here that I wanted to focus on for glute strengthening, but it also helps you to stretch out your adductor muscles as well, increase a little bit of mobility in your hips, is doing a sumo squat or a sumo deadlift. I didn't bring my barbell today, so I'm not going to demonstrate the barbell version of this, but you can hold this weight in front of you like this, and now you want to start off with your feet positioned so that your feet are lined up with the direction that your knee is going. Start with a wide stance like this, and you're going to, don't bend forward like that, it will take the tension off. So you want to sink down nice and straight like this, and then push through the heels, come back up. Try to almost lock out the knees at the top of the movement. And that'll help strengthen your glutes as well. All right, guys, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I know it's a quite lengthy video. I hope that it helped you find some good insights into how to help relieve any butt pain that you might be having. Also to help create more balance in your body when you are in the gym and you're working out. If you'd like to see more content like this, you can check out my YouTube channel, Functional Aesthetics EC. Also, from time to time, I post content like this on my business Facebook page. So if you'd like to see that, follow me on Facebook, like the page if you like what you see. I also post stuff related to nutrition, diet, building muscles, mindset, things of that nature as well. So check it out. We'll see y'all next time for more health and fitness related information. Thanks, guys.